Howdy gamers, and you know what they say, new year, new me, and well, it sure is a new year, so I figured I'd better do something about that. I'm gonna finally take a look at Mirror's Edge. You know, it may just be my color blindness, but I don't think this is Mirror's Edge. Hollow Knight, or as some people call it, not Mirror's Edge, was a game I had wanted to play for a while. My friend Adam introduced me to it and it looked like so much fun, but they cancelled the Wii U port, so what was the point of getting it? If I can't play Hollow Knight on the same console as Funky Barn, I'm not too sure if I want to play it, but one day, I really wanted to prove just how much I hated sex, so I bought an Xbox One Fortnite edition. It allowed me to have no sex thank you and access to Game Pass, but only when it's on sale for $1 because, yeah, it's an amazing deal, but most of the time I just buy it and then I do a really funny thing where I just don't use it or only use it for a day. One of those times was December of 2019 and I realized, oh shoot, Hollow Knight's on Game Pass, so I figured it would be a good way for me to demo the game to see if I enjoyed it, and I really did. But I didn't play too much because I knew I wouldn't be able to finish it in time, so I waited for June of 2020 to come around, and I got it. Instantly, I fell in love with this game. The world design, the characters, the upgrades, and then I got to the Watcher Knight boss fight and took a break from playing because I couldn't beat him. But then I started playing again sometime in November, and I ended up beating the game in December. Also, it might sound bad that I stopped playing the game, but I promise you it's not because the game is bad. I just had to play through Punch-Out and I sort of just didn't come back to Hollow Knight. I do love this game though. It was one of those games where whenever I had free time, I would play Hollow Knight. And even after seeing the credits roll, I'm still playing it because I love this game so much that I want to try to fully complete it. And I'm not even the type of person to do that. The only games I've ever fully completed are Cuphead and Super Mario 3D World. Of course, that kind of does raise the question of why I want to even complete Hollow Knight in the first place, and well, it's mainly so I finally have something to put in this frame. It's also because I kind of love everything about this game and just want to keep playing it. First off, the sound design in Hollow Knight is the best out of any video game. I mean, who doesn't love playing games for the sound design? That's why I'm always sure to turn the brightness all the way down on my TV to get the true experience. The sound of his footsteps, the sound of the sword swinging, even his jumps, it all just sounds perfect. Each enemy has their own unique sound too, and it's not like Gen 1 Pokemon where all the Pokemon cries are questionable at best. The enemy noises are all unique and fit that enemy so well. Also, I haven't even mentioned the sound of the rain in the City of Tears, with how all NPCs have their own voice too, and they all speak in their own made-up bug language. And it's actually memorable too, to the point where if you've played Hollow Knight and you see the lady running the map store, you can already hear her iconic line in your head. There are more excellent uses of sound design in this game, but I get that it's not that important to everyone, and honestly isn't too important to me. I was just blown away by it. There is one final use of good sound design I do want to mention though, and that's of Cornerford, the map salesman in Hollow Knight. The sound of his writing is amazing, and I get that sounds really freaking stupid, and I mean you're not wrong, but basically while playing Hollow Knight, you're exploring a giant world, and because of that, the game gives you a really useful map to guide you along the way. Like maps kind of just do, it gives you directions, and they're vital to the game of Hollow Knight. So entering a new area and hearing Cornerford just makes you breathe a sigh of relief. And then as you get closer and closer to him, his writing will be louder and louder until you find him. And even though maps aren't the most revolutionary things in video games, I mean, even back on the NES, The Legend of Zelda had a map, although now that I'm saying it out loud and picturing it, that's a very bad example, but hopefully you still got my point. Because even though maps are in so many video games, the map in Hollow Knight still stands out for some reason. First off, just by entering a new area and finding Cornerford, you know that you're in the right place. That way you never have to be confused about whether you should be in that area yet. Even with that though, it still doesn't mean you can't do things in your own order, but I'll get to that later. Like I was saying though, as far as I can tell, as long as you can find and then buy a map from Cornerford, you're in the right place. And once you find him and get one of his maps, you can press L and just pull up a map of the immediate area without having to go into your menu, which is honestly really nice and allows you to get around easier. Really though, after a while you probably won't even need to pull up your map since a lot of the places are memorable and it's not like the world is trying to confuse you. But if you do want to view the full area, you can press minus and pull up this beauty. This is from an early part in the game because I don't want to show how big the map is, but you can see all those little parts where there's just blank space, and that's an area that you haven't explored yet. This allows for you, if you ever get stuck, you can just head to one of those parts. Because of that, this is a Metroidvania where you will never get stuck. I'll be honest, there was a part of Super Metroid where I just didn't know where to go next, and I had to ask my teacher for help, and it keeps me up at night just thinking about that. Also, if you find a place and you're not sure if you should be there and Cornifer isn't there, that doesn't mean you can't explore freely, and you probably will find some secrets if you do. And like I said earlier, you can do a lot of this game in any order you want, especially when it comes to finding power-ups and beating bosses. I just love when games let me do this because it allows me to be an idiot and ignore good game design guiding me where to go and accidentally beat one of the endgame bosses in Dark Souls before being halfway through the game, or in Hollow Knight's case, beating one of the beginning game bosses right before the final boss. That's really just the beauty of games like Hollow Knight. You can explore the whole world at your own pace and do multiple sections of this game in just any order you want, leading to unique and memorable experiences that feel like your own. But it's not just optional areas to explore and exploring areas in your own order. It's amplified even more by the fact that there are 47 bosses in the game, and believe it or not, that's a lot of bosses, and it might even seem overwhelming, but guess how many bosses you actually have to beat? If you guess 23.5, no, you're wrong. There's no half a boss, and also, frick you for going down the middle and taking a safe bet. And, like I said, you're wrong. Plus, on top of that, you were way off, so you're pretty stupid for even considering that to be an option. I mean, really, how dumb do you have to be to not know that there's 7 mandatory bosses in Hollow Knight? And I can hear what you're thinking now. First off, that was kinda rude, and also, 7 bosses? That doesn't really seem like a lot, and you're right, but you're not gonna fight just 7. You'd literally have to try to do that. And also, all the bosses in the game are fun to fight. There's no difference in quality from the optional bosses and the required bosses, to the point where it's hard to tell which is which, so I don't know why you wouldn't want to fight them all. Each boss is different from the last, not just in their looks, but also in the way they attack, the way they move, their arena, the song that plays, the list just goes on. Each boss you fight in this game is like an event of sorts. I really can't think of a single boss fight in this game I didn't like. Sure, some of them were really tough, and I also haven't fought all of them, so I guess there could be some hidden boss in the corner of the map somewhere that makes you memorize the multiplication tables, but I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that boss doesn't exist. And even if it did, Team Cherry would find a way to make it fun. Just think of the 40 optional bosses in the game like Korok Seeds from Breath of the Wild, in the sense that there are so many of them, and they're spread evenly across the map, that you'll definitely run into them. And like I said, the boss design in the game is so good that there's no way you won't want to fight them. Plus, you're always rewarded for beating a boss, so apart from the feeling of conquering a tough boss, you also get the feeling of unlocking something. And I get that comparing the bosses in Hollow Knight to the Koroks in Breath of the Wild might not have been the best comparison out there, because I mean, the boss fights are a lot more fun and intense than discovering a Korok in Breath of the Wild, but there kinda is something similar to Koroks in Breath of the Wild, and those are the Grubs. Grubs are just freaking adorable. They're creatures that are hidden around the map in little glass jars, and please don't ask why they're in glass jars. Anyways, once you get close enough to them, they'll start to cry out for help, letting you know that they're nearby, and the closer you are, the louder it'll get, but sometimes you can't reach them. You might not have the correct power-ups to be able to get to them yet, and when that happens, it acts as a great incentivizer to get more power-ups, so that you can finally reach it. And as soon as you get that new ability, you'll immediately remember the grub you couldn't get, and you don't have to worry about losing track of where it was, because the grubs that you find but can't reach appear on your map, which is really freaking convenient. Of course, a reward for saving cute helpless bug creatures would be nice. I mean, come on, why would I do that for free? So, luckily in Hollow Knight, when you free a grub and go back to the grub nest, you get a reward, whether it be Geo, a mask shard, charms, and more. Of course, you probably don't know what any of those are, so let me start with Geo. And you know that stuff you used to buy 10 copies of Monkey Mischief Party Time on the Wii? Yeah, it's called money, and Hollow Knight's Geo is just like that, without the Monkey Mischief Party Time on the Wii. In Hollownest, there are multiple shops, from a convenience store, a charm store, to oh god go back. Really, the shops in Hollow Knight aren't too special compared to other games, but what makes them nice is that they're all different in their own way, from the person running it, the look, and what they sell. Like, there's one where you can sell stuff for a high price, and then another one where you can bring a type of ore, and then you can get your sword upgraded for some money. All the shops specialize in their own unique thing with a little bit of crossover between shops, but for the most part, like I said, they're all unique. For example, Zelda's has mainly mapping stuff like pins and, well, maps. And I get that pins might not seem like they're map related, but in Hollow Knight, pins are markers that you can place on your map. And honestly, as simple as they sound, the pins in Hollow Knight are so helpful, and I kinda wish more Metroidvanias had them, because they make traversing around the map so much easier. Because if you want to mark something that doesn't show up on the map for whatever reason, you can just do it and come back to it later. And other than the pins you place yourself, you can buy some automatic pins that automatically place when you find a store, bench, or stack station. And I know I said I would explain what charms and mask shards are, but really quickly, whenever you die in Hollow Knight, you respawn at the last bench you rested at. They act as save points, and they also heal your health. But what makes this unique from other Metroidvanias is that when you die, the shade appears where you died, and if you defeat him, you get all your Geo back. You also get some of your health back, but I'll go into the health system later, and honestly, the list of things I said I'd talk about is getting scarily long, so I should probably just pick something off the list. Other than the fact that there are only 2 escalators in the entire state of Wyoming, that'll take too long to talk about and is a discussion for another day, so I'll talk about something similar, charms. In Hollow Knight, charms, in addition to being similar to the fact that there are only 2 escalators in the entire state of Wyoming, are also similar to the badge system in Paper Mario. In Hollow Knight, you start off with 3 open charm slots, and depending on what the charm is, it'll take more charm slots to equip. So something simple like you automatically collect Geo takes 1 slot, but then something a bit more wacky like you're able to automatically regenerate health takes 4 slots. Although that might seem confusing because I just said you start off with 3 charm slots, so how can you equip a charm that takes up 4? And well, you could always make a blood sacrifice to Cthulhu. I promised myself I wouldn't kill anyone this year, so I'm just gonna stick to finding charm notches. You get charm notches from stores, beating bosses, or just finding them, and as simple as the whole concept of charms is, I freaking love them. They allow you to create a playstyle unique to you, and since you'll find some charms and not find others, it creates a really unique experience. There are so many combinations of them, and since some charms take up more charm slots than others, you might really want to use a certain charm, but then it leaves you with only 2 charm slots left, meaning you'll get to use a charm that you might not have bothered with otherwise. Also, I never explained this, but if you want to change charms, you have to do it at a bench, and since there is a bench by almost every boss fight, that means if you're having trouble with a boss, you can just completely change around the way your charms work to give you an advantage. But if charms aren't working for you, another way that you can get advantages over bosses is by getting more mask shards. Masks in Hollow Knight are like a health bar, but epic. Each mask you have allows you to take 1 hit, and if they're all destroyed, you die. Personally, I wouldn't know what that whole dying part is like since I'm so good at video games, but you start off Hollow Knight with only 3 masks, and you can get more by finding mask shards. It takes 4 mask shards to get more health, and that might seem bad that you have to collect so much just to get a health upgrade, but it's honestly not because they're pretty easy to get. A few of them can be bought, and the others you find laying around to defeat bosses to get. And it's not like that's the only collectible upgrade either, there's also the Vessel Fragment. You find them pretty much the same way as Mask Shards, and they also help out with healing. It takes 3 Vessel Fragments to make a vessel, and vessels allow you to store more soul. Soul in Hollow Knight is how you can heal yourself without charms or a bench. It's honestly such a cool idea for a healing mechanic in a video game, because each time you hit something, it'll give you their soul, which will help you fill up your vessels, but if you try to hit them, you can also get hurt, so it can be really intense when you're on low health trying to heal during a boss fight. It's a great risk-reward system, and it also means you don't have to wander around and find a bench every time you want to heal or grind enemies for a health power-up until they finally give you one. When you first start off Hollow Knight, you only have the base soul vessel, which can heal you 3 times before running out, and each of the vessels you get from then on can heal you once before running out. Honestly, I just love the healing system in Hollow Knight. It works surprisingly well, just like the whole game, especially the movement system. I don't know what it is, but Hollow Knight just feels so smooth to control. Everything is so responsive, and I just love it so much. I'm really not exaggerating when I say that if you die in Hollow Knight, it was probably your fault. Same goes for the movement system with platforming. Even when you unlock more and more movement-based upgrades, it all feels natural, and soon you'll be wondering how you even got by without those upgrades. As an example, after it was released, Hollow Knight received 4 DLC packs, and one of them added a platforming challenge, and it feels so natural. And Hollow Knight wasn't even made primarily as a platformer, which just goes to show how good the movement system is. And speaking of the free DLC, it's so amazing. A lot of games DLC just feel like afterthoughts or completely separate from the main game, but with Hollow Knight, it's really hard to tell what was part of the free DLC. So because of this, once you beat Hollow Knight, there's just so much endgame content, and it's all great. My friend Adam has already beat the game on Xbox doing most of the endgame stuff, and he replayed it on PC to 100% it, and managed to get 87 hours out of it. And that might not seem like a lot, but keep in mind, he beat the game knowing where everything was, and thanks to the endgame content got all that playtime. Also, I'm not really too sure if endgame content is the best to call it, since a lot of it you can do earlier in the game, since you can do a lot of the stuff in the game in any order. So I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of it can just be done before you fight the final boss, which is kind of amazing. Also, if somehow 87 hours doesn't seem like a lot, I'm still doing the endgame stuff, and I've gotten 115 hours out of this game. But I get not everyone is a fan of long games, I understand that, so keep in mind that just playing through the game on average, according to howlongtobeat.com, takes 26 hours. Also, if you're wondering why for completion it only says 56 hours, that's because it just doesn't include the DLC, but also because the people on How Long to Beat are freaking liars who get their kicks from lying about how long it took them to beat Brunswick Pro Bowling so they can feel good about themselves. It's off topic, but my favorite example of this is with the game called The Longing, which people are claiming they beat in 15 hours. For context, it's physically impossible for anyone to beat the game before April 9th, 2021, so I don't really know what's going on here. Anyways, back to Hollow Knight though, and there's not too much left to talk about, but I'd say the soundtrack is a good place to start, and it's honestly amazing. I haven't mentioned it yet, but it's one of the best of all time. There is not a single bad song in the game, and it all just adds to the amazing atmosphere, because almost every area in the game has its own song to go along with it, and it's all memorable too. I'm pretty sure if you play any track from the game, I could tell you what area it's from. It also just helps that the songs sound like they could only fit that specific area. Like the song for the fungal waste just sounds like a song for the fungal waste, which I know sounds stupid, but I just can't help but be amazed by the soundtrack. Like I said, it perfectly adds the amazing atmosphere of Hollow Knight. Most areas feel unique, with a lot of them having enemies and music unique to that area. A lot of people say all the places in Hollow Knight look the same, but that just couldn't be further from the truth. All named areas, except for maybe 1 or 2, look different from the last. In my opinion at least. Maybe everyone else is just more colorblind than I am, but I just don't see it. But another thing that's the atmosphere other than the soundtrack is just the characters. There are just so many memorable characters who a lot of have their own mini character arc that you can sometimes impact, like with Zoe or Mila. It's nothing too in-depth, but it still adds a lot of charm to the game, and I'll forever love characters like Zoe, Hornet, Cloth, and Coral. Also, I haven't even mentioned the fact that there's deep freaking lore to this game that I don't really understand, but even though I don't, I can still somewhat piece together what happened to Hollownest and what my character is doing to it. And even if you don't understand the story, you still get some touching moments out of the game, like when visiting the empty stag nest for the first time. It's just such a touching moment, even if you don't know the lore behind it. Frick, I realized I never explained what a stag is. I should probably do that because, yeah, they're kind of important. Stags in Hollow Knight are how you fast travel around the map because Hollow Knight's map is big. That's not really a bad thing though because Team Cherry put so many things to find, but because it is so big, there kind of need to be a way to get around to places quicker. Normally, I would be against this. Personally, I hate how you can just fast travel to any place in Dark Souls 3, but here it works well because you don't necessarily need them because of how well the world is interconnected and how new paths open up, linking places together the further you get in the game. But when you want to get somewhere fast, it's really helpful and I love it for that. I think it's kind of obvious how I feel about this game by now. I mean, I just went 20 minutes without saying a single bad thing about it, and that's just because I love this game. It's honestly a masterpiece. If you haven't played this game, please do. The progression is near perfect. I never got lost, but at the same time, the game never felt linear. The atmosphere is the best I've ever seen in a video game, and it's also really challenging at times, which I love. That's why to give this game an award. I would honestly give it the Must Play award, and I've only given this award out 2 other times, and to give it a score out of 100, I would also give it a 100 out of 100. Please just play Hollow Knight. Well, as long as you play it with the sound all the way up and the brightness turned all the way down so you can't see anything.